Good morning and welcome to this WIOA Wednesday webinar. My name is Molly Cook with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. Today's topic is a higher calling, reentry employment. As a reminder, all participants on this call are in listen-only mode and cannot unmute themselves. If you have questions as the webinar proceeds, please post those in the Q&A or chat box, and we will address them at the end of this webinar. A reminder that this webinar will be recorded. The presentation, recording, and any materials presented during today's meeting will be available on the icsps.illinoisstate.edu website and on Illinois WorkNet within 48 hours. I will put the link to the slides for today's presentation in the chat box momentarily. In an effort to be as accessible as possible, this webinar will be offering closed captioning, and the recorded session will also have closed captioning. At the end of the webinar and tomorrow, each attendee will receive a follow-up email, which will include a survey asking you about the webinar. Please provide feedback and any suggestions you have to help us improve upcoming webinars. A reminder that if you have a faulty internet connection or would prefer to call in, you can do so by calling into this webinar using the phone number on your original presentation email, on your original registration email. And I am going to start us off with our two WIOA Wednesday webinar starter polls, and you'll see those on your screen in just one moment. The first question is, where is your local area? So if you could take a moment to answer that poll. Great, thank you so much for responding. As you can tell, we have participants from throughout the state today, a pretty big Northern Illinois presence, so thanks everyone for joining us. We have one more opening poll question, which is, which partner do you best represent? So I will be launching that one next here. Great, thanks so much for responding. As you can tell, this is great. We have all titles present. We have other WIOA partners and stakeholders, as well as state and local workforce innovation board members. So thank you so much to all for joining us. I would now like to turn it over to our facilitator, Mike Massey, to start our presentation.
Thank you, Molly, and Molly and Kirsten, thanks for all the fine work you did on helping us get this all set up. Good morning, my name is Mike Massey. I'm one of the co-leaders of the Illinois Workforce Innovation Board Career Pathways for Targeted Populations Committee, along with Tom Windorf, Margie Schieman, and David Freeman. We all welcome you to this session and hope that it'll be of value in this very, very important area. Next slide, please. You'll see from our agenda that we are allocating about 60 minutes to the presentation with another opportunity at the end for questions by you all. We will look forward to those questions and both in this process, and we think that this is really a good agenda, and we really appreciate also the help that has been done by Greg Martinez and Seven in terms of kind of being a catalyst, get us all up and going. So all of the panelists have been part of some tech checks. We've had a chance to talk through these things, and panelists, again, at the beginning of this, we at the Illinois Workforce Innovation Board want to thank you for your participation in this process. Any questions about the agenda? If not, we'll go on to the next part, please. I want to quote from one of the executive directors, Lisa Blythe Jones, because I think this says it very well. And it says that, again, that local workforce boards include members from all core partners, many of you that are with us today, and together they are responsible for the strategic development of the local workforce system by looking at current trends and forecasting future needs while offering nimble and flexible programs and services. Led by local employers, some of those we have with us today, working with economic development agencies, which we also have with us today, educational providers, labor organizations, and other community stakeholders. Workforce boards are responsive to the unique needs of their local economy. Today, work that happens in local workforce areas across the state will be highlighted. It's a quote from Dr. Lisa Bly-Jones. Courtney and Ed, please let them know that we found the wisdom and that language be very helpful. I think it also puts its focus on why we have these professional development opportunities that you all participate in, and what the fine job that's being done by Illinois State and others in providing those. Let's go to the next slide if we could, please. One of our thoughts, and we'd like for you all to think about this, participants along with you that are attending, is how we can utilize our American Job Centers as a part of this work. What I'd like to do on a very brief basis is have Mark Lohman talk about how he did that and what the concept was with the Kiwanis Life Skills Reentry Center in terms of the work and how you connected through American Job Centers with those that we were working with that were before release. Mark, would you give us a really quick overview of what that was about, the American Job Center that you did at Kiwani?
Sure. We established an American Job Center inside of Kiwani Life Skills Reentry Center. Our American Job Center network is established by local workforce development boards, and it's a primary go-to resource for business people as well as justice-involved individuals. We worked with the individuals while they were incarcerated on employment and training, collaborating with various local and state government entities, as well as local and state not-for-profit organizations. The intent is to help somebody be more prepared while they are incarcerated and connect to resources when they are on parole or after their incarceration is complete.
Our hope here would be, as we look at the job centers, both the physical and perhaps the virtual, is that we would facilitate, again, as Mark said, so someone's at Kiwani and will be locating in Chicago, that connecting with those in the Chicago through folks like that Greg Martinez and others can help with the local N7, or Jeff in your part of the world down in Metro East, that we can connect with those in 2124. So as we think about how we get service integration and we connect these dots, I think the advocacy would be that the American Job Centers and our local workforces could be an ideal way to go forward on it. Next slide, please. Again, want to quote from this higher calling overview. Again, this effort, the naming and all of that was initiated by Local 7. Greg, we really appreciate that. The quote that you'll see here in this is, the second chance hiring improves our communities by employing people with criminal records. When people continue to suffer the penalty of workforce barriers due to their past mistakes after serving their time, we not only want to create injustice, and we not only create injustice and intergenerational poverty, but we also miss out on tapping into the potential of an incredible workforce. We're going to learn much more from Ed and Ben and Jeff about what that incredible workforce could look like. Greg, we thank you for your initiative and Local 7 and moving this along. Next slide, please. Megan's going to go into much more detail on the data, but a brief overview on that data. Again, you see from an economic development standpoint that 40% have an increased likelihood of poverty if their father is in prison, 50% less likely to receive a job interview if formerly incarcerated, and that there are over 5 million children in the US who have parents that have been incarcerated. Next slide, please. We have the privilege and the opportunity to learn from Dr. Megan Alderton about some of the data that she has accumulated and others have accumulated to give us a data resource kind of lead in this process. Megan, we really appreciate you joining us. Please tell us a little about yourself and take it away.
Sure. My name is Megan Alderton. I'm an associate professor of criminology at DePaul University. And today I'm going to share with you some information about some patterns around who are currently on mandatory supervised release. You can go to the next slide. For those of you who are not familiar with the term MSR or mandatory supervised release, this is the term that Illinois uses to refer to who's leaving the Department of Corrections under some type of community supervision. In other states, they might use the term parole. In Illinois, it's a little bit nuanced in that the term parole actually applies to an older sentencing practice. So here in Illinois, we call it MSR. So you can go to the next slide. So as of June 30th, there were about 21,000 people on MSR who were living somewhere in Illinois. What's not shown here is gender. So males account for about 92% of the individuals currently on MSR in Illinois. And even though females account for a small percentage, there are actually about 1,600 females in Illinois who are currently on MSR as of June 30th. So I'm going to start from the upper left-hand corner and kind of move around the slide a little bit. So as you'll see in the very top left-hand corner, about half of those on MSR are identified by DOC or the Department of Corrections as Black or African American. And this is well above their representation in the overall population in Illinois, which is actually depicted by the white bar with the blue border around it. All other groups are generally underrepresented compared to their representation in Illinois population, but to varying degrees. As you can see, whites have the greatest differentiation. About 9% of the MSR population, if you look at the next bar chart to the right, about 9% of the population, or about 2,000 individuals, are considered emerging adults. These are persons under the age of 25 years. And there is a robust literature on brain development that indicates that adolescent brains, of which this group is included, so anyone under the age of 25, do not fully mature until their mid-20s. And so this is an important thing to consider when working with this particular population. You can also see about 64% are between the ages of 25 and 44, the age at which many adults in the US are entering their professional careers, getting married, having children. And these characteristics, marriage, family, and employment, are all protective factors that have been known to reduce the likelihood of offending, particularly in males. Thus making that this particular time period of these individuals' lives a really important life events that they may be missing. If you go into the lower left-hand corner, you're going to see the highest offense for which individuals were committed to or sentenced to the Department of Corrections. And you're going to see there that about 48% were in custody for a crime against another person. And this is a little bit of a misleading category because it includes offenses that may not necessarily have involved another person. So for instance, unlawful use of a weapon is considered a person crime. So you have to be a little bit careful about interpreting that as being only violent crimes against individuals. And as you can see, the next largest is felony drug-related crimes. And then finally, that lower graph in the right-hand corner there, that graph shows about the amount of time and years individuals are currently on MSR, how much they have spent time in custody. And this can include custody both in jails and DOC. And as you can see here, the largest percentage of individuals spent between 1 to 3 years in custody. And it's important to note, a lot of times people will say, oh, well, that's not a lot of time in custody, but it's important to understand that incarceration, regardless of how much time you spend, can actually have a significant impact on individuals, communities, and their families. Beyond the consequences of having a felony record, those incarcerated experience breakages in family bonds, employment, and other pro-social connections. And these are all protective factors that are shown to lessen the likelihood of offending. So individuals are having these protective factors kind of broken as they are incarcerated. And then in addition to that, those incarcerated can also experience social isolation and segregation. And these can actually undermine one's physical, social, and mental well-being. So incarceration itself can be sometimes what we call criminogenic, meaning it actually increases likelihood of reoffending. If we go to the next slide, we're going to, here you show kind of the top 10 counties with residents on MSR. And about 2/3 of these top 10 counties account for people returning. As you can see here, for those of you who are familiar with the state, a lot of these places that you see arrows going to are places that are kind of like more densely populated places. This doesn't mean that communities that are more rural in nature don't have issues supporting the individuals as they return to communities. In fact, those that are more rural communities actually have fewer resources for assistance. And so there's challenges regardless of where you go within the state after a period of incarceration at the state level. If you go to slide 3, I wanted to highlight, even within the counties where there's high numbers of residents on MSR, you often see a clustering of these individuals within micro spaces. And this particularly happens in urban communities. And here is, as an example, is Cook County. About 50% of the people in MSR in Cook County live within 13 zip codes. The first one there is Cook County Jail. So even though it comes out as the highest, it's because the jail's sitting there. If we were to map other indicators of disadvantage and disinvestment, such as poverty, unemployment, undereducation, we would see significant overlap with the areas highlighted here. And this creates challenges for those returning back into communities, right? Not only are they faced with limited resources and connections and overcoming the breakages they experience while incarcerated, but those they are around and living with and the communities where they're situated are also experiencing many of these same disadvantages. And then we're going to go to my last slide. And this reflects the 3-year return rate for to the Illinois Department of Corrections. Now, it's important to understand what the return rate means. This means that within 3 years of being released, they return to the Department of Corrections either for a new offense or some type of technical violation. This is a little bit different from a recidivism rate, which is based on rearrest and reconviction, so not to get confused. Because this is a 3-year rate, the most recent year that was available on the DOC website was for state fiscal year 2017. So individuals released during that time period. And as you can see here, the 3-year return rate was about 41%. So here's a couple of things I wanted to highlight. First is, as you can see here, there's a relationship between age and return rate. Those younger have a much higher rate of return than older individuals, likely reflecting what we call maturation, meaning that as people get older, they're more likely to desist from crime. It also could be because those individuals, you have brain development issues and kind of maturation with the brain and whatnot. It also indicates the importance of providing comprehensive support services to assist those younger individuals transitioning and supporting them into pro-social activities like employment. The second, and not surprising, is that males have a higher return rate, have a return rate that's notably higher than females. And then finally, there is not a lot of differentiation in the return rate by offense. And I know you're probably saying, well, wait a second, what I see here is that there is a much higher rate for those sentenced to Department of Corrections for some type of sex crime. But it's really important to understand what that actually is saying there. Those who are convicted of sex crimes sometimes don't have appropriate housing at the time of release. And the consequence is that DOC has to issue what's called a gate violation, which means they automatically return to DOC custody. And so this consequently artificially inflates their return rate. So this rate isn't really reflective of technical violations or new sentence. It's really somewhat of a function of the fact that some people just can't return to their community or to the home where they came from. So the larger point that I wanted to kind of highlight here, though, when looking at these numbers, is that sometimes people are afraid, especially when they hear person crime, that those individuals are more likely to have reoffending or other kinds of problematic behaviors. But really what we actually see is those committed sometimes of the more serious crimes are actually individuals who spend a lot of time in custody. And by the time they are released, they're older and are less likely to commit crime. And a really good example of this is those sentenced for murders who were released in 2017 actually only had a 15.7% return rate. So those individuals are the least likely to come back. So really what this kind of data all suggests is the importance of supporting individuals as they kind of return back into community, and that those individuals who might be most at risk are the ones who need support services to help them kind of rebuild some of the things that kind of broke down while they were incarcerated, or to address some of the disadvantage that they've experienced throughout their life. And I believe that's all I have.
Megan, thanks very much for the presentation. We look forward to working with you in the future as we look at the data in terms of trying to show how we can try to impact lives for employers and employees within this group. Let's go to the higher calling video, if you would, please, Molly. Molly, we heard it earlier. I'm not hearing it now.
The world is full of good people who make bad choices. Unfortunately for many, those bad choices or set of bad choices led to incarceration and lifetime of barriers, including those in the workforce.
We know that the Latinx and African American communities are disproportionately impacted by our criminal justice system. And as returning citizens, they face additional challenges.
The unemployment rate for those who've been incarcerated in prisons is 27%. In the first year, it's as high as 50%. This is talent we can't afford to waste.
The Road Home is our effort to reform reentry services within the city of Chicago and Cook County, and most importantly, hopefully, throughout Illinois.
The Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership has always served returning citizens, but the Road Home provided a specific program to meet their needs.
Whereas other services at the city and the state level seek to connect returning residents to job opportunities, this reentry initiative is unique in that it calls on more employers to do their part to help our residents succeed.
When I was locked up, there was no clear pathway. I think there's services that are available right now, but I think they need to be, it just needs a little kick in the butt, is the way you could say it.
I was hired not because of my lived experience, as they call it. There was nothing special about my lived experience. It cost me 29 dreadful years of my life. I'm just humbled at the fact that I can take such a difficult period of time in my life, use it to help make the reentry system in Illinois a better one. And most importantly, to change the lives and the futures of so many men and women for decades to come. Anybody who needs employment in here, call that number, we're gonna get you together.
There's a work ethic that you develop when you're on the inside. And I just think people need to know that when people come home after being incarcerated, that their desire is just like anyone else's, to re-enter the workforce with dignity, to be paid a livable wage, and also to be treated like any other human being.
My job as a reentry navigator is I am going into the jail, I'm going into IDOC, and I'm going to select these 150 people and be able to sit down and talk to them and understand where it is they're coming from, because I've been through the same thing.
We're gonna walk them from pre-release all the way through to career level employment and secondary education. Whatever it takes, whatever barriers there are to a successful future and a successful life, we're here to remove that.
I remember while I was away, every day I would spend some time thinking and dreaming about what it would like to be released. And certainly being gainfully employed was a major part of that, being able to take care of my family and my responsibilities. If you're an employer and you're seeking specific skills or knowledge from potential candidates, I encourage you to take a seat at the table and share your needs with colleges and universities so programs can be created and instructed to those that are presently incarcerated and seeking an opportunity when they're released.
We actually work with the incarcerated workforce and have complete sort of career pathing for them. We see the human potential in the person, not the crime for which they're locked up for. And unleashing that potential has been amazing. And the ability for them to, when they are released, to get back into society and take jobs in basically STEM is amazing. And they are highly capable, smart. Nobody's ever given them a chance.
My name is Pete Leonard. I am the founder and chief roast master of I Have a Bean Coffee. We roast coffee in Wheaton, Illinois. We founded in 2007. Took 2 years to design and build our own coffee roasting system. Started roasting commercially in 2009 with the express purpose of hiring men and women who have been released from prison. Since we founded, we've employed more than 60 post-prison men and women. We produce coffee rated in the top 1% of all the coffee in the world, and we have a great time doing it. So we employ post-prison people, men and women who have been released from prison, who are done with an old life or just really upset with a mistake that they made in their past that ended them up in prison. We recognize that, and in fact, we don't judge people by the errors of their past. Instead, we want to be known for the present evidence of the content of our character. And so that's what we look for when we hire people. In fact, I get asked all the time, is there any category of crime that you won't hire from? No, none. Everybody's story is different. We listen to people, we listen to the individual story and assess where that person is on their journey from a past life to a new life and make a hiring decision based on that.
For years now, we've been running all sorts of programs within the jail to give people job skills. And frankly, talking to the business community and asking them, what would you want me to do? If you had your dream, what skill would you want me to give a detainee? We've done that. And so we've had all sorts of different programs that have been directing at making people more hireable. And in doing that, then we've had many, many, many people hired directly coming out of the jail. And the ones that we have stayed in contact with, and that's many of them, the results have been incredibly positive.
Our demographics suggest we're heading to a labor shortage. We need to be able in the business community to ensure that we have the workforce that can help us thrive as individual companies and thrive as an economy. Developing a talent pipeline takes time and investment. There is never a better time to start than today.
You know, we love our children, we love our family. We want to be productive members of society. And when given that opportunity, we can flourish in our communities, we can flourish in our cities, and ultimately our nation.
And I'm thankful to the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership for giving me a second chance, a chance at career level employment.
Greg and others in 7 Weekend, thanks for all of the fine work you've done. It's a very appropriate segue to our next segment on a couple of things. One, the focus with the higher calling was on employers. And we have an outstanding list of employers that'll be part of our presentation today that we'll go through. We wanted to show the kind of from a geographical balance, as you see on the map. We've got Burner Foods with Ed Wood up in the northwestern part of Illinois. We have Ben Endress with Midwest Trailer Manufacturing out of Kewanee, and you see that location. And then we've got Jeff Horvath in the Metro East area, who also have been significant efforts in terms of employment of those and giving second chances. So what I'd like to do is, Molly, as we go through each one of these, Ben, if you would. If you pull up, if you would please, Ben's the PowerPoint on Ben, if you would please. And Ben, please tell us a little bit about Ben Endress, if you would please, before we get into the panel questions. Ben, please take it away.
Hello, good morning. I'm first of all, a husband to my wife, Katie, and a father to 10 children. They range from age 22 to 4. And then I'm really an entrepreneur at heart. I didn't have a lot of interest in college after I graduated in '92. And I went right into the business. And so currently now I've got 3 brothers and myself that run 3 companies. And I'm currently employed at the Midwest Trailer Manufacturing. So glad to be part of the talk today.
And on an anecdotal basis, since Ben and our proximity, we had a chance to work with Ben on my own personal basis. And when I saw the higher calling, that the reality from my perspective was Ben exemplifies a higher calling. I know that one of the, in terms of past hiring practices, that he's hired individuals that he's brought into the system, and they have been elevated and with second chances for a long time. And he considers it as a good business decision, just as Ed and Jeff do, but also an appropriate calling in terms of just doing what's right in terms of trying to help those with second chances. Let's go next to, if you would please, the segment on is it Jeff next up? Jeff, please introduce yourself, Jeff.
I'm Jeff Horvath, and I'm the Vice President of Operations and Supply Chain at TerraSource Global. We're an engineered to order job shop in Belleville, Illinois. Been operating here for over a century. We have a reliance on skilled craftsmen that really is at the core of what we do. Customers ask us to make things for them, and we do. And it's fairly significant fabrication, similar to MTM. I actually was up and visited with them as part of sort of my onboarding to this notion of second chance hiring. But what we do relies on talent that is very hard to come by. And so we've taken and adopted an approach of sort of grow your own, where we take people that have a particular aptitude or maybe a bit of an acumen for mechanical things. Maybe they've had some experiences that are sort of adjacent to the kind of things that we do. And through a number of different means, actually some of the things they talked about in that video, we provide them with access to apprenticeships and post-secondary education that work on that acumen and that aptitude to develop it into fully certified craftspeople and journey worker level employees. So we're pretty excited at the opportunity to work with DOC and a number of agencies to find those folks who have the right chemistry and the right construct to be developed into someone who can have a career in the trades. So that's kind of our individual calling, I guess, at TSG.
And Jeff, again, anecdotally, what's really interesting to someone from my part of the world is we hear about you up here and all the fine work you've done in the past. You really have walked the talk in terms of giving second chances and going forward. And so we look forward to getting further information from you. And then Ed, please take away if you bring up Ed's please.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Ed Wood. I'm the Vice President of Human Resources for Berner Food and Beverage. Berner Food and Beverage is a 75-year-old food and beverage manufacturer that was started by a farm family getting into the dairy and cheese business. Today, we do national brand coffee energy drinks, snacks, and various food products. We employ over 800 people. So again, we're always looking, like was said before, for the best talent. Being part of programs such as you're going to hear about today has been very important to us. So.
And we really appreciate you joining us. And again, Ed is integrally involved also with the local workforce up in the Winnebago-Stevenson area as well. And so Ed, we thank you for all of that fine work as well. Well, we'll next go through our list of questions here. And so our first question for our panel, and again, one of the primary focuses of this presentation was to hear from our employers and our employees, and we appreciate that opportunity. So I'm going to start out with, we will start out with, have you incorporated second chance hiring into your talent pipeline? And Ed, if you would lead the way with that, please.
Yeah, thank you. You know, over 3 years ago, we started working with Stevenson County Probation Department on developing a work readiness program. The unemployment rate of people on probation or as was talked about before, the managed supervisory release program is dramatically higher than the rest of the population. So we worked with them to develop a program. They do a 4-week mandatory program for people that sign up. At the end of that 4-week program, they invite employers to interview the graduates. We have been to every graduating class and have been very successful in providing employment for many of those individuals. Why is this important? I mean, today businesses are struggling for workers. Again, it was mentioned over and over again. You have to look at all the areas of how you're going to attract a workforce, attract and retain a workforce. And I think that if employers do not consider the returning citizens or programs such as you're hearing about today, you're really overlooking a great source of workers. And I have to say, they're not just workers. They're highly engaged, highly motivated, and really want to just have that second chance. There are so many barriers that are placed in front of the formerly incarcerated that employers need to look at what barriers do they have and how do they take those down. Again, it's a great source of very highly motivated individuals. We talk a lot in the HR community about diversity and inclusion. And you think about those groups that HR people or companies try to ensure that they're including. And it's just recently been recognized that this is a group, this population that has gone perhaps overlooked in many areas is just as important, not only to your business, but also to your community of getting and participating in programs that bring these people back in a very productive way. So enough said by me. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. Jeff, would you take the next? Would you go to your answers in terms of question one?
Sure. I mean, in terms of how we're approaching second chance hiring, it's basically two main areas. One is if someone had skills prior to their incarceration that provide them with what they need to be successful here, and that's really important. That we don't want to set someone up for failure. But if they've got skills that they acquired before their incarceration, we want to put that to work. So that's pretty traditional in terms of recruiting. But the secondary one is the one that's sort of more interesting, which is developing skills in folks that maybe either during their incarceration, like Kiwani as an example. I fell in love with Kiwani's program the first time I was exposed to it. They provide them through their manufacturing programs with sort of a primer on a lot of different manufacturing techniques and methods, any one of which can serve as the foundation for them to develop from where they are. So if they possess that acumen and that postures them for success, or even if maybe they just like to work on cars, before they went in, that was kind of a thing they did. That gives them the beginning of that mechanical aptitude that we can employ. So why are we doing this? Well, it's really simple. As been stated many times, we need people to operate our business, and we rely on the skills and abilities of people to do that very, very heavily. We were very heavily reliant on the skills of individuals, and like everyone, all these people, all these men and women have an inherent value, as all of us do. They've got a potential to share that value and satisfy a very real need, labor for the business and skills for the business. They can contribute with ideas and thoughts and their individual creativity. And they should be given an opportunity to exercise that value that they inherently possess in a way that serves their need for employment and for fulfillment. I mean, it's more than just I have a job. I like to think that we don't give people jobs. We open up career opportunities for folks and give them a runway for that career. And so it serves the need for their employment first and foremost, I guess, but it also adds to the economy and the communities that they work and live in. It makes for a better community, and it fulfills a big gap, very frankly, especially in the metro area right now. We've lost, I mean, in 1995, there were 1.4 million jobs in manufacturing in the 16 counties around St. Louis. Today, there's about 400,000. So it's a huge vacuum that was created when McDonnell Douglas left and the auto plants left and the pharmaceuticals left. So we're doing what we can do to get a win-win thing going on where we train them in what we need, fill that vacuum, and they get a real path to a real career that gives them real wages and real security, I guess.
Thank you, Jeff. Ben?
Well, our story started back probably 8 years ago when I was running the Macon General Contractors business, which is a company that builds grain elevators throughout the United States, employs around 120 individuals. And so about 8 years ago, a resume came across my desk, and it had on it that he just got released from prison not too long ago. And we didn't really need anybody at the time. That was a time when there was plenty of workforce available. But I brought the individual in and I said, just tell me exactly what happened. And it ended up he had 7 felonies on his record. And it was more of a personal calling. And I told him, I don't really care where you've been. I'm more concerned where you're going. And I hired him, didn't check with HR, just decided we're gonna take this chance on this individual because I believed him that he wanted to turn around. And anyway, at the course of the employment, he got promoted about 3 times. He ran a crew of 25 millwrights and concrete workers, and just became a very, very good employee. We had his family out over for dinner multiple times and got to know him personally. And it was just very gratifying from a personal standpoint, not necessarily a business strategy, but a personal standpoint to help an individual out. And so more recently now with MTM, it has become not necessarily a huge strategy, but more of a strategy because workforce is hard to come by. And this population is available and maybe not real skilled yet, but they are available. And so we now, Midwest Trailer Manufacturing is located across the road from the Kewanee Life Skills Reentry Center. And so we're able to get to know the staff in the prison. We're able to get to know some of the residents there. And we're able to now conduct some job interviews while they're still incarcerated, with a chance that when they get out, they come across the street and are able to, we're able to give them employment. So that's kind of our, and I would say we've hired around 7 that had resided there at the Life Reentry Center. And then COVID shut it down here pretty drastically, but we're hoping the prison repopulates and we're able to, hoping some of the programs start back up.
Thank you, Ben. And Ed, Jeff, and Ben, in terms of kind of your job challenges today, Ed, you were indicating you have how many kind of unfilled kind of positions at Burner?
Currently, we have over 120 full-time production positions that are unfilled.
And how about you, Jeff?
We got 30.
And Ben?
Midwest Trailers has about 60 employees and we've got about 10 unfilled positions.
I mean, the real message here, of course, is that we need good employees, and this is one of the areas to go through it. So why it's important is getting good employees along with our with the other kind of callings that everyone has. Again, going to question number 2, and Jeff, I'd like you to start out with this one, please. What advice would you offer to other employers?
It's been said a couple of different ways, but the first one is look past the past. I mean, it's just that. It's a reflection of what was, not what is or what could be. So focus on building and growing and developing skills and acumen in the people that you hire. As I said sort of earlier, so they don't just have employment. I mean, I think the way you get good employees is by demonstrating something very material in your interest in their development and what's in it for them. The what's in it for them factor is kind of key to anybody, regardless of what your past might be. Show them a runway to the future and design personal development programs with sort of stackable, accretive credentialing in our world, in the skilled trades world, so that you create a career path by endowing them, the individuals, with valuable, marketable skills. And don't be afraid of, well, gee, I'm going to make all this investment, they might go away. Yeah, it's a free country, they can do that. But it's been our experience that we see almost like an alma mater type loyalty to the company with those that we're investing in. So regardless of whether they find better opportunities, we're going to keep investing and keep growing them, and that's okay, because frankly, leveraging this program creates a sustainable pipeline for the people resources that you need.
Ben, what advice would you give employers, other employers?
I would advise them not to underestimate how well your current employees and workforce will step up and wrap their arms around someone that's been incarcerated. That is, as I talk with folks, different employers, that is their biggest concern, is how will my current workforce react to hiring someone with maybe a very colorful past. And it's been our experience in every situation, both at Macon and at Midwest Trailer Manufacturing, that the current workforce really steps up and really creates community, and really takes upon themselves to give rides if they don't have a ride to work. Invites them to barbecues, and that really becomes their community. And we have had really zero problems at all on the ones that we have hired from across the street. So just don't be afraid.
Thank you, Ben. Ed, advice to other employers?
Yeah, my advice is just, look at your organization and what unintentional barriers you actually have within your organization. Just a quick story. We had a gentleman supervised, and he had an ankle bracelet. Our breaks, our shifts are 12-hour shifts. Their 20-minute breaks wasn't long enough to charge his bracelet effectively. And just understanding that you can make those exceptions and can work around your internal policies to embrace what's needed to make these positions work. So
thank you, Ed. We'll go to question number 3. What should reentrants, second chancellors, know about your business model? What would they need to know? And Ben, we'll start with you, if you would, please.
Well, I think what they need to know is we don't change our business model necessarily because we're hiring returning citizens. That they're going to be held to the same standards as the current workforce, and that yes, we have a heart for them and we want them to succeed, but they will be held to the utmost standards our current employees are held to. And I think I believe they all understand that, and our actions of our supervisors, how they treat people, prove that out.
Ed?
Yeah, I would just say that, understanding that, like Ben said, we don't lower our standards, but we definitely understand that there's an adjustment, and asking our supervisors, our leads, the HR department to go a little bit further to help describe the work environment, understand what's going to be expected. And if we do that, we have never been disappointed in how they react, because once they understand what's expected of them, they truly try their best to meet those standards.
Jeff?
Mine sort of more reflects on the actual incarcerated individual. I mean, I'm sure that this may go without saying, but sort of do a little introspection. I mean, but specifically around your value. What is it that your value proposition is? And by that I mean, you know, you've got something to offer, guaranteed. If you've got a heartbeat and you're breathing, you've got something to offer. So what is it that you feel you can do with that, with yourself, to answer something that the labor market needs? Because the very first thing is to get to that motivation beyond just, I gotta have a job, I'm going to be released and I need a job. It's no, what do you envision yourself? It's sort of the classic interview question, right? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Well, there's something inside of all of us that says this is what I like. It's individual and it's unique to us. So explore that, figure out what that is, and then with that motivation to become not only employed but to have a career and stability, sort of economic stability and life stability. Go and start to work on how you're going to answer what the market needs and present yourself that way. I think that's a really important part. It's something that I see in the folks that are working for us, is they did a really good job of presenting, here's who I am and here's what I can do for you.
Thank you, Jeff. Let's go to question number 4. And Jeff, I'm going to have you lead the way.
I guess the struggles, that a couple of them were already mentioned. I mean, one of them is the mindset of the organization. I had to work very hard to get my corporate parent to, I guess, allow me to explore this option. And I worked very hard for a number of months just to get over this stigma, this fear. What the final argument, I just said, look, if you're worried about something, the only way we're going to get over the top of it is to experience it. That's the only way to subdue your fear, is to actually do it. So after a lot of work, I was able to work through the corporate parent, get the policies changed, and become, for at least my corporate parent, an early adopter of this whole science. So that was sort of one thing, first and foremost. The comment was made, you know, about the people in the plant. That was a big concern of the corporation. Same question. It was just said, you know, well, isn't the population of the incumbent workers, aren't they going to get really uptight about all this? And to be very honest, it was kind of a, you know, I mean, literally no big deal. We don't obviously go out and publish, you know, people's pasts. We wouldn't want to do that. But the folks that are working here had no problem with sharing the fact that they were, you know, previously incarcerated, and it really was kind of a no big deal reaction. So for the folks that might be thinking about some of that, at least my experience, and I guess at MTM is the same thing, didn't have that happen. The only other point really is the skill set of the reentrant. One of the things that, and we're talking a little bit about it in the video, is coming up with more very meaningful, very material, very concrete programs to develop immediately employable skills during the incarceration period. You know, Kiwani's one example of a start of that, but I think that it can go even further, and that's sort of what I'm working with Jennifer Perrick and some others on within DOC, to try to really credential people as welders, as machinists. I mean, it's a little self-serving, I realize, but there's you know, something like 3,000 machinist jobs open in Illinois right now, so they can go anywhere with those kinds of credentialed skills. So really looking at that academic aspect of what can be accomplished prior to release, I think is something that would be produce a very tangible result in terms of being able to ready people for the workforce in a very meaningful way.
Thank you, Jeff. Ed?
Yes, some successes, as was mentioned before. We have a couple individuals that have come in through a program, did so well. They are currently in lead positions. Those types of successes are wonderful. The struggles we have personally in our area is transportation. We are about 15 minutes away from Freeport, so transportation becomes an issue. we have a lot of carpooling and things like that. But it's something that we watch for and try to hook people up with other people on their shifts that have reliable transportation. So.
Thank you, Ed. Ben?
We've been extremely fortunate being right across the road from the Kiwani Life Skills, and being that they are one of the early adopters of this skills program. Some of the incarcerated said they looked out their cell windows and looked across the street and said, well, that's where I want to work. And so we didn't have to try real hard. And so that's been very successful, being right across the road from workforce that is starting to get some welding skills and some other skills that we're not training them from ground zero. And I think Carlos, who will be joining us here today, is very much of a success story. He's been promoted 4 different times and just excels at what he does. We've had, I believe I said 7 total. And we consider it a success when they work for us, but if they go on and find another job, maybe in the area that they grow up in or an area that they really want to be, we consider that a success as well. And we've had a few of those successes from some of the employees that worked a year and moved on. Some of the struggles is being in Kiwani. They just don't have family here. And so some of them just want to move back to the county or the other areas where they do have family support. Yes, our transportation system in Kiwani is not robust. But I would say, and then housing is somewhat a struggle as well, find housing. So those are successes and struggles.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you all. Thank you, Ben. What I'd like to do is kind of end, and then we're going to have some opportunity questions. I understand we will be continuing within the context of these things and having questions later. But one of the real messages here is that most of our jobs, all jobs, whether they're for second chance or otherwise, are with medium-sized and small businesses. And it is these businesses and what these represent on whether it's a 60 employee or 1,000 employee or 500, whatever it may be, that is where most of our employment takes place in Illinois. And so we really appreciate the perspective from a burner and from TerraSource and from MTM in that process. What we'd like to do next is we'll go on to the employee experience panel. If we could, please, Molly. Michael, I think we know a great deal about you based on that video we saw already, but please take it away. And hopefully, again, for you all, Carlos had some medical needs that were being taken care of today. And I think he just got in the van. So Carlos will be joining us as well. So, and Ben and Carlos, to facilitate this, actually agreed to kind of take it out of the van. So Carlos, I hope you're feeling well, and you're going to get back to work this afternoon. I hope you're not going to try and take this as an excuse not to get back to work later today. But in event, Michael, please take it away.
Sure. Sure. Thank you, Mike. I'd like to thank everyone for attending. I'm Michael Cannon, Reentry Navigator for the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership. I'd like to say that early on I've been incarcerated for 29 years. I returned home July 31st, 2021. I've been home 17 months. I'd like to say that early on in my incarceration, after reflecting on my life and seeing the plight of those around me, I knew early on that I wanted to make a better way and a better day for myself and others who had rehabilitated themselves. And I wanted a better future in life. So that, for me, provided me with a purpose to seek employment and profession that was tailored to my life. Once I identified that gave me the opportunity to study the labor market while at Kiwani. we were given that opportunity to be able to spread our wings, so to speak. And my interest took me to studying the labor market, and my I guess you could say my insight and my lived experience. It gave me the ability to effectively guide myself and others through an effective reentry and transition back into society. And now I guess I can say that I'm proud. I can say that through guiding myself and others through a successful reentry, the road to achieving a successful reentry has become my expertise in this area. And it, fortunately, it landed me a job with the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership, who was willing to give me a second chance, and I'm grateful for that. So,
thank you, Michael, for that introduction. If we could get up Carlos's introduction, if you would, please, Molly. Okay, so, and Carlos, you're going to see we got a picture of you at graduation that we were able to put up on this. So please introduce yourself. All right. You're still on mute, Ben. Go ahead, Carlos. Please take it away.
Okay, my name is Carlos Lewis, and I was incarcerated for 20 years from December of 1998 to December of 2018. And my experience early on in being incarcerated was different from Michael's. I was basically a knucklehead because I felt like at that time that I was wrong. But after doing time and constantly going back and forth and said, I had to, you have to make a decision on what you want to be for the rest of your life. And I came to the decision that if I were to get out today, I would probably be right back within just a few months. So I decided to go to school. I got 2 degrees. I have I think 3 or 4 certificates, one of which that led me to get the job that I have right now with MTM through Kewanee Life Skill Reentry Center. We took a welding class through Blackhawk, and we was offered a job if we could find a place of residency in Kewanee. And I was one of the fortunate ones that got out and had a strong support system. And I also had a job to look forward to, which was very helpful, because I think when you begin to understand, see that your out date is approaching real fast, that is coming up, you have to think to yourself like, okay, what am I going to do for employment? And I was in Danville at the time, and I was thinking to myself, I don't want to go back to Chicago because I know what's there for me. And I feel like since I changed, it would be crazy for me to go back to the same environment that I was in before, dealing with the same people, because eventually the people that you surround yourself around, you will begin to mingle with them again too. And that was just not an option for me. So I chose to stay in Kewanee and accept the job at MTM. And like Ben said, I've been promoted 4 times. I made lead, and I actually turned the lead job down because I wanted another challenge. And now I'm on the chassis line, and I'm not in charge of the small parts assembly. And it's been a struggle, but it's been okay because I set myself up to be successful. And the thing is about, and what goes with that, you have to follow up with positive things. You can't surround yourself with nonsense or anything like that. And it's been real good down there in Kewanee. Another thing that I would like to share is that when getting out, I was scared of a lot of things. And I know it sounds funny hearing that from somebody that did 20 years in jail. And you're just not used to being around people. When you do that much time in jail, you isolate yourself. And having to open up to people and talk to people, that was a challenge for me, but I got over it and everything is going okay right now. I have to admit that.
So we have some questions for you, Carlos, and for you, Michael, and you've begun to answer some of them already, and that's really good. But so, and Carlos, kind of follow up on it. You just indicated what your biggest fear or concern was about employment after incarceration. Would you want to talk a little more about that? Again, it was just
my biggest fear. When I got employed was I knew that I had very little to no skill as far as welding, because the year I went home was the year they brought the Black Hawk welding class there, which I took in July. And with that, it was a month-long class, and we finished the class, and okay, now you're not welding for 6 months and you jump right back into welding. So my biggest fear was I'm gonna lose my job. Would I lose the house that I have too? And what would I do after that? But I have to say that the managers that was there, and especially the employees, they corralled around me and helped me out. And I mean, now I could be just as good as probably a 15-year welder. And that was really my biggest fear, is not like standing up to what I want to be, and not being able to in that.
Thank you, Carlos. How about you, Michael?
First of all, I'd like to congratulate you on overcoming what was your biggest fears. For me, as a directly impacted person who got it, well, let me back up a little bit. To be completely honest, my experience was quite different from most others returning from prison after having spent 3 decades in prison. The common fear and anxiety many of my peers experienced due to their impending release was not a problem for me because of my personal extensive pre-release preparation. You know, I was able to do that over a long period of time. But studying the labor market and studying the plight of those around me as a directly impacted person who guided myself and others through a successful reentry, some of the biggest fears and concerns that I identified, aside from the fear of not being able to get a job, period, due to the negative public perception and social stigma attached to ex-felons, prison stereotype, if you will, which Mr. Indris and a few others spoke on. That was a great concern of not just mine, but just about everybody. Being able to get a job, you know, and having that social stigma, people view you a certain way. They have this prison stereotype. People watch TV, they see the guy with all of the tattoos, and you know, when that's not really the reality. Like I said at the beginning of the video, the world is full of good people who make bad choices, and a lot of people in prison, well, obviously we made bad choices. We ended up there, but that doesn't make us inherently bad. You know, we got caught in doing something bad, but those of us who rehabilitate ourselves, well, let me get back to the biggest fears. Aside from that negative social stigma that's attached to ex-felons, was the concern of not being able to get a good job that pays a livable wage, not just a job, but a job with a livable wage, the lack of work experience and a work history, the lack of vocational training, that was a big one, or marketable skills were most people's greatest fears, are most people's greatest fears. These are the barriers that drove me in my role as, that drives me in my role as reentry navigator for the Chicago Workforce Partnership. The biggest fear or concern was not a single factor, a couple factors, but a combination or a culmination of all of the factors that I just mentioned, along with many more tangible and intangible factors that I heavily stacked against a person who has been incarcerated. So there is no real cookie cutter remedy for successful reentry. But successful reentry is based upon being able to effectively address the individual needs of each person. Each person has his or her unique individual needs, but there at Kiwani, they are working diligently to address those needs. Mr. Mark Lohman bringing the vocational training and the skills and the marketable skills for individuals like Carlos to be able to enter the workforce and not just enter it and get a livable wage, but to advance. He advanced 4 times in his job, you know, and how many people can say that who hasn't been incarcerated, that can advance, that has advanced the way he has. So, you know, our drive and our ambition to succeed with a second chance means everything to us. So I'll close on that note.
Thank you, Michael. And I think we had question 2, which was the biggest challenge. And I think both of you have done a very good job of kind of addressing that. So I think I'd like to flip to question 3. And what would you, Michael and Carlos, be saying to employers about second chance hiring?
I would say this, but before I move on, I would say also one of the biggest challenges faced regarding getting a job after release would have to be the technological gap that exists between today and the world as it was before my release. So as we all know, technology becomes obsolete, every 2 years? So imagine coming home, entering the workforce where you are obsolete 15 times over. I have coined and used a term called social handicap, you know, where a person's lack of knowledge and inability to use modern technology, you know, can render him almost totally socially dependent upon another person to function. But with them recognizing that fact, Mr. Mark Lohman and them, they worked hard to update everyone on the technological lapses that they had due to incarceration. And that was a great help. What would I tell employers considering second chance hiring? I would tell them the very same thing that I told them while working in workforce development at Kiwani. I would tell them that returning citizens are, well, you heard the term go green in reference to renewable resources, right? Well, I say go blue. You know, returning citizens are the #1 most renewable and useful resource in America. If developed, given the vocational training and the marketable skills, looking at the void in the labor market, you look at the employers here with the vacancies in their companies, returning citizens. When you look at that pool, you're looking at a pool of hungry workers who are starving for a second chance. And if given that second chance, many will rise to the occasion and make good on that second chance and do well. Carlos is a testament to that. I'm a testament to that. And man, I could parade a bunch of guys that has done a lot of time. You will find them conscientious, hard workers. They work longer hours, the whole 9 yards.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. And then I see you shaking your head of all the things Michael was saying there, Carlos, in an affirmation. But again, what would you tell employers about second chance?
The thing that I always tell employers about is giving us a second chance, is that just give a lot of us is just looking for that one toenail in the door. You don't even need to give me a foot. Just give me a toenail in the door. that door, because that's the only thing I need to say to myself when I was getting closer and closer to my out date. I just hope somebody just give me a chance, because I know the fire that burns inside me that wants to be successful. I know how I want to prove to everybody that I'm not just what I used to be. So just give a person that chance. You would not regret it. And are there some people that's in there that won't stand up to? Of course, everything is not 100% anywhere. But if you just give that person that chance, I guarantee you that they would not let you down. They would not let you down, because I tell Ben all the time, he is a good man, and I appreciate everything that he has done for me. Because that's all that you want, is a person to give you that second chance. That's all.
Thank you, Carlos. And again, this facilitator hasn't done a very good job of moving. We're beginning to run out of time here, so I apologize. But I'm glad, Carlos, that we waited so you can get back on. So the final question for the two of you is, again, we've got about 13 minutes, and we've got some others we need to get through here. So I apologize for that. But so what would you tell those who are looking for second chances, Carlos? What would you tell people like Carlos?
What I would tell them, and I would go back and talk to them, because some needs visual of a person that's actually did as much time as me and Michael did, and out here now and actually being a productive member of society. Some people need that visual, because it's really a myth in jail that, okay, it's not that many people that go out there and come reach back or help people out. Just be open to letting a person help you out, because what I did when my last 5 years in there, I wrote, y'all probably laugh. I read this financial literacy for dummies. And just like what Michael said, I mean, you think of like technology. I was thinking that, okay, I see everything is going off credit now. You can't really get anything off credit. So I need to get this together, because I have very little to no knowledge about financial literacy. And it actually goes to say about the Black community, though. It's very few people in the community that actually know how to take care of their finances and do things like that. So in doing that, I set myself up for when I got out to at least know that part.
Thank you, Carlos.
Everything else you can get help with, but your finances, you don't want anybody to be in that but you.
So financial literacy would be, Michael, again, real quickly, we've got your advice to.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, real quickly, to be honest, I tell them that actually right now they are in the best position they can be as a returning citizen here in Illinois. Due to the innovative and aggressive work that places like the American Job Center, my agency, the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership, and many other partnering agencies are dedicated to, we are helping them find not simply a job, but access to the skills and training necessary for them to achieve gainful career level employment. This is the key for those who truly want an opportunity. Like everyone else, returning residents want to know that their opportunity is truly sustainable. They want access to sustainable living wages that provides them access to the same level of peace and financial security that everyone on this video conference desires.
Thank you, Michael.
So with that, I close. Thank you very much.
No, well, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Carlos. It's invaluable. One of the messages that Carlos suggested to me, one of the things he would be telling and did tell is he'll be a very hard worker, just like Michael is, and it's that kind of resolve that really we've got. If you're a hard worker and you're willing to go at it, then there are incredible opportunities ahead of you. So we now go to closing remarks, if we could, please. And again, Courtney, Mark, and Greg, your facilitator hasn't allowed you much time. So Courtney, please take it away, if you would, please.
Sure. I'll be very quick. I'm Courtney Geiger, Director of Career Services for the Workforce Connection, and we are up in Northern Illinois. We are lucky enough to get to work with a lot of great employers, including Ed Wood and Burner Foods, and have a lot of initiatives to help individuals who have former justice system involvement find careers, find employment, and find opportunities, as Michael said, with living wages and opportunities to move forward. This is really important work, and I would just encourage everyone, whether you're an employer in a position to hire on this call, or whether you're a workforce area looking to get more into this work, there are so many opportunities. And we know, based on stats from a year ago, 75% of formerly incarcerated individuals are still unemployed a year after release. Employment is such a key element of release and in lowering recidivism rates. So the more we can work with individuals and give them that second chance and really help them develop, we can help change our communities, change our workforce, increase diversity. There's so many benefits to this work, and it really does change lives in our communities and has a generational effect as well for children of individuals with incarceration as well. So I would just say also, if you're looking for resources, reach out to your local workforce board or reach out to any of us. We are always happy to share and help you get into this work more. And I noticed even in some of the questions talking about transportation, your local workforce board is a great resource for some of those supportive services to help individuals be successful. My call to action is don't delay, get into this work and reach out to any of us. We're happy to help.
Thanks for your help, Courtney. Mark?
Our American Job Centers, established by local workforce development boards, are the primary go-to resource for all business executives, managers, and owners like the ones you heard from today, as well as the primary resource for justice-involved individuals while incarcerated and after release. American Job Centers are located in 22 local workforce investment areas throughout Illinois and in every state and territory of the United States. There are many of these centers in Chicago and Cook County. Chicago Workforce Partnership has navigators like Michael Cannon who can help. Courtney mentioned the wealth of programs and services. It is a collaboration of many partner organizations for employment and training, adult education, and literacy, career and technical education, employment services, vocational rehabilitation, and lots of support services like Courtney mentioned. A link is in the chat, and that link that begins with Career One Stop is a link that will take you to a resource for finding your American Job Center by location, by city, state, or zip code. And that is a nationwide service provided by the United States Department of Labor. I encourage you to use your American Job Center.
Thank you, Mark. And Greg, it's only very appropriate for you to have kind of the closing comments. Again, we compliment you on the initiative to kind of move this along and get these employers along. Greg, please take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and thanks to all the panelists, everybody who was part of this event. It was great information. And just I'll briefly just say, kind of echoing some of the things that Courtney and Mark had said. We as the public workforce system have an immense opportunity to really make an impact into how people leaving incarceration are delivered workforce services. And so I think, as Courtney said, we realize that employment, it is not the only metric for success and factor for success for somebody coming back from incarceration to community, but we do know that employment is one of those foundational pillars for success coming back into community. So again, as the public workforce system, we felt that we had a charge to really coalesce here in Cook County, employers, stakeholders, to really create a campaign for awareness to why is it so important to hire people coming back to community with criminal backgrounds. So just again, wanted to say thank you all for being part of this. If anybody has any questions or needs guidance as to how to do a regional higher calling event, if you're part of the state, so please reach out to me. I'd be happy to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Molly, from a time standpoint, do we go off the system automatically at 11:30? What's the dynamic there?
So we have about 5 more minutes, and I'll share some of the questions that were in the chat box just to make sure those got addressed. Is that okay?
If you would, please.
Okay, awesome. So one question it looks like did get addressed. Somebody asked about transportation. They found that transportation was a barrier for re-entrance, and they asked individuals' experience with that and overcoming it. And I think Courtney addressed that by suggesting contacting your local workforce board regarding transportation options. And I know that Ben addressed as well, talking about carpooling and things like that. Did anyone else have any other suggestions to add to those answers? Okay, perfect. Well, I will review the next question that we had. We had a question in the chat box asking about employment in terms of gig jobs, such as Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, etc. So Greg, this might be a question for you about addressing reentry employment in terms of gig jobs.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, gig jobs are definitely an option for folks who have limited to no, work experience. But I think, as Michael mentioned, one of the things that we're definitely trying to get away from is those traditional jobs that don't have a career pathway, warehousing jobs, general labor. Unfortunately, the data just shows that that's where predominantly most of the people with criminal backgrounds end up getting placed. So again, it's more about providing somebody with a living wage and career level employment. So then again, they don't resort to other criminogenic behavior as they did before.
Thank you so much, Greg. And we just have one more question to address. And just a reminder that several of our panelists have put their contact info in the chat box, so that if you think of questions after this about something someone said, that info is in the chat. Our final question is, this is for both Carlos and Michael. What was the biggest motivator for success? Or what was your biggest motivator for success?
Man, I have to say, man, just the fact that I had a second chance in life, the ability to be able to support myself and my family comfortably, and not have to struggle and worry. So that was my greatest concern. And things are going great for me now. The Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership gave me this second chance. I was able to, they gave me a chance to prove my worth, my work ethic, and my ability to be able to get such an important job done. So I leave on that note. I appreciate everyone coming, employers, and everyone else. And I applaud you for your interest in making individuals and communities whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Carlos, biggest motivator for you? And we're not seeing either you visually or. And you still with us?
Yes, my biggest motivation was
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. You bet. Thank you.
You can hear me?
We hear you.
I know we said okay. Fear of failure. I just gave up 20 years of my life, so getting out and going back to what I was doing before, that was definitely not an option. So the fear of failure, that's what motivates me every day, and that's something that would never leave. I do not want to fail. I cannot fail. That's just something that's just my nature. I would not fail like this.
Well, I think on that really strong note, we will be able to end this all. We really appreciate, again, all you panelists, appreciate all the input, your efforts in doing these things. So, and we look forward to, as we go beyond one session, we look forward to the opportunity to work with you all as we try and make impact on lives more in the future. So thanks to you all. And I think with that, we will conclude it. Thanks again.
Great, thank you. And you'll see in the chat box, I'll post it again right now. There is a link to a survey which reviews the webinar today. And you'll also receive that survey via email tomorrow. So if you want to do the survey while it's fresh in your head, feel free to do so.
Thank you, Molly.
Have a good day, everyone.